Have you ever faced endless delays and budget blowouts when it comes to your multifamily renovations? This happens a lot of the time, and not always are you prepared to be able to deal with those kinds of issues. It slows down your project and it can really cause a lot of problems. And in the beginning of my multifamily investing career, we had quite a few of those problems. And so today I'm going to dive into some of those issues and how we transformed our construction chaos into a well-oiled machine. I'm Garrett Lynch with Nighthawk Equity, and there's quite a few problems that come up when it comes to construction. So some of the problems that we ran into were trying to match materials and labor right out the gate. And so that can cause a lot of issues because you're waiting on materials to arrive and then you have to match them with the labor. And the idea is you match those two together and you're able to save money on your renovations. The problem is those deliveries don't come in on time. You have inventory management issues, and then you have to sync it up with your labor. And if you miss a couple days because you got late or delayed arrivals from your materials, then you're going to upset the labor. The labor is going to go away, and pretty soon you're delayed by a long period of time. So a while ago, we tried to do this method in the beginning before we had really understood how we were going to complete these renovations. And it wasn't going so well. We had all these issues, late deliveries, labor, not the best labor, and then the labor would not show up. And then we would have delays and the labor would never show up again. We had to find new crews. There's all kinds of issues with payment. And so this caused delays on the renovation side. And these kind of delays really harm your ability to execute the business plan. Now, we always underwrite with a buffer, but at some point, you have to be hitting your targets. And so our main targets and our main problems were not being met at that time. And so the other thing that a lot of people do is they rely on their property management company. And relying on the property management company means that they could either do a good job or a bad job. If they do a good job, but your management suffers, then you're tied to them as a management company for just their construction and not for their actual management, because your properties are going to suffer on that side. And on the flip side, if they're bad at construction, then you don't have anything getting done. And so it's difficult and not the best advice to rely on your property management company to get your renovations done. And this is outside of your normal turns. Plus, you got to pay them 5% fee when you could be doing the construction yourself and making that fee. So this was something that we realized. We got in there. Plus, on top of all of that, we didn't really have, when we got started, the best person running the project. And that can be a huge detriment. You need to have somebody in there that is able to communicate with the different construction groups. They're able to find and source new groups to work with. They're able to be compliant, understand compliance. They're going to need to work quickly and then be on time and in budget, which is not always the easiest thing to do. And so without that strong leader in place, there's a lot of bad ones out there. It's going to be difficult to get your projects done on time. And so we had all these issues and it was slowing down our projects. It was very stressful. It was taking a lot of time up to deal with them. There's a lot of visits, a lot of walking units, a lot of quality control and just things like that. There were major delays, which in turn, when you have those delays, it equals a loss in revenue for you. You're supposed to finish units on time. We didn't really have a huge issue with exterior construction. That was always pretty easy because we would just find a group that we really liked and use them to complete the projects, and we had it all bid out in the beginning. So that was always fairly easy for us. But when it came to interiors, it's more difficult because you have to also have somebody that communicates well with the managers and the on-site people in order to get it done. And so we knew we needed to change up what we were doing. And it was not an easy process. We had to have meetings in the beginning almost weekly to go over a process. So process meetings. Hey, what did we do? How did this work? And what are we missing here? And in the very beginning, we just had a construction manager, but he didn't have anyone to rely on for the admin work, which is also a challenge. In the very beginning, we weren't even using contracts, which is a bigger mistake. You must use contracts when it comes to these types of construction projects. And so pivoted away from doing materials and labor, no contracts, a bad leader in place, to getting a good leader, working on our processes and systems that could work without a good leader, even for a period of time, switching away from us getting the materials and labor and pushing that back on the contractor, and then honing in everything to work in sync with the property manager. And so there were a few things that we had to do. First off, these weekly meetings that we would do, we would literally step by step the process, what's working, what's not working. Hey, we have this contractor, what's working with them, what's not. They're billing it, there is an issue. We need to set up, their expectations on the billing side. And so what we finally worked out on that side was we were going to put we would just pay at the end, which caused a lot of stress for the contractor. We started to bring in contracts that were set up like this. And this is the best way that we found to do it. So we get a group of contractors. We started off with one contracting group, and then our project manager would manage that one contracting group. We grew that to a deep bench of about 10. And that took time. And the way we would set up our construction is we would essentially pay them 30% down upfront as a deposit, and then their other 70% at the end of the project. But the caveat is if the project went over a certain amount of time, typically 25 or 30 days, they would owe us a daily amount of money back. And so that really incentivized the contractor to not lose money. So they would they pay attention to our projects first and finish them on time. And that's called liquidated damages. So, or LDs. And so you want to have that in place on a contract. So the contract's 30 days. Anything over 30 days is LDs on a daily rate, and that would eat away at their profit. So we set that up, give them the deposit to get their materials, put the contract in place, give them the units that they're going to renovate, keep them on the units through move out, do what's called a pre-walk. So the pre-walk is super important because if you don't do the pre-walk, the contractor can build a scope. And then from that scope, if it's anything outside of that, they can nickel and dime you for it after. So you want to do a pre-walk, figure out the exact scope of the unit, put it into the contract, and then they'll complete it for the price that's agreed upon. Okay, so with that setup alone, it saved us so much headache because now the contractor is in charge of all of their own materials and labor. So that's all together in one. We get a bulk rate because we're giving them a lot of units at one time, so we're paying less for the overall amount. And typically they're not charging us much more for materials than what they're getting it for, if anything, because they want the labor. And then in addition, they're incentivized to finish the units on time with that. So with that contract in place, now they can't wiggle out of it. And so we hold all the cards to get this done. And now all we need is somebody to handle the admin. So we had to hire a specific admin for construction. That admin would be in charge of contracts, they'd be in charge of billing, they'd be in charge of even communication with the contractors to make sure that they're like the first line of defense. This would keep the pressure off of the actual project manager. So the project manager wasn't doing everything. And if you are doing a lot scale, then you're going to need a coordinator. The coordinator is going to walk units consistently for quality control, make sure they're up to standards. With this new system, we were able to take contractors on one side of the property, give them some units, and then give a different contractor an amount of units and kind of work them against each other. So they knew they were competing. So if one guy would screw up or his guys wouldn't show up, they were late on the project, we'd give it to the other guy. We'd say, all right, take this guy's unit over. And that protected us quite a bit. So with the contract in place, that helped. And all of a sudden you had guys competing for timing and to get more work. And we have a great volume of work that we're putting out. So we're able to get, again, all the discounts, high quality work done, and get it done consistently. And so these were some big shifts in our whole process. A lot of people are like, oh no, we like to do the material and labor and all that stuff. That's not what we do. We get really good pricing, but we keep it all with these contractors. And then all we have to do is find new contractors that are insured, that are compliant, they have all the risk and liability on them, and we just pay them directly. And so that's been really good for us in our business in general, in the way that we've pivoted away from a lot of the problems that exist when it comes to construction. Because the hard part isn't really the exteriors, because you can do that whenever you want. Now, you still want to quality control those exteriors and go there and make sure that they're painting things the right way. Even when we're doing the paint, we paint one side of the building one color and one the other, so that we make sure that we're getting the right color, because they don't always match the pictures. We do use a design company for our exteriors and rent and leasing office and things like that. So they'll give us everything that we need on that, and then we'll just give it over to the contractor, and then they'll execute on it. but so you need to check those things. You need to go visit, make sure the project's happening the way it should. But overall, that's not the hard part. The hard part is when someone moves out, how quickly you can move through the trash out, the pre-walk inspection, communicate with the managers, make sure that you're doing the punch walks, and make sure you're knocking out the renovation, and then having it leased in time and get that all done in 30 days or less. That's the hard part. Now, for extra credit, if you can figure out how to get interiors done while they're occupied, that's an even bigger skill that some people do. We actually just recently learned that skill. And that allows you to up the rates at renewal without having to go through the whole move out process, or it allows you to re-rent it at the higher rate for just the cost of a turn once you're finished. So it's already done all the time. It's a quick turn, and then someone gets in there. So that's another skill that's really cool that you can implement into your construction. So our big thing, we simplified our whole process down to two things: on time and in budget. And if we can get on time and in budget, we can scale and execute the business plan in time consistently. And we've gotten to the place where we can do up to 80 unit renovations a month, no problem, without it breaking the team. It's really an exciting number. And we used to only be able to do like 30, and that was a struggle. So our scaling that has really helped us drive revenues faster into the project. Renovating the unit, getting a new renter at the higher rent, that's the lifeblood of your business. Your whole business plan, it's less about expense management and more about revenue management and increasing your revenues. That's where all the money is. It's less, you can only lower expenses by so much. You want to try to do that, of course. Your ability to renovate units and get new renters in at a higher rate is what's going to dictate your success in these apartment complexes. So it's important that you stay on time. So in general, get your construction right. Use some of these tips and tricks to maybe change what you're doing currently. And I wish the best success to you and your ability to add value to these apartment complexes.